Hello there. I hope you're having a wonderful time. This is about one 10 minutes past after 1 or 10 minutes past 1 p.m. That is Brasilia local time. I don't know what time it should be where you're watching me live and direct. Well, today I will talk a little bit about the Brazilian education system, as you have seen on the thumbnail. To do this presentation, I'm going to project my screen. I have, okay, let me see. So you can tell me where you're watching me from so that we can interact. And I decided to make this live because some of you have asked about the system, Brazilian educational system, specifically the technical schools. So I decided to make this live so that I can interact with you guys. Okay, I'm going to interact with you in this live. I don't know, I'm unable to share a screen that I did the presentation. Okay, let me see. Yeah, I think I'm going to share the whole screen. Okay, I don't know how it's going to be. Let me see who is accompanying me. I can see about 3 people watching me live. Okay, 1 minute, please. Sometimes you have unforeseen circumstances like this one. I had prepared the presentation, but it was on another tab. Now I'm not able to present it, so I don't know what's happening. I don't know if it's right violation or whatever it is. But I will try to project the whole of my screen. I don't know if it's going to be adequate, but let's see. I'm going to share the whole of my screen. It looks a little bit rousy, but this is it, guys. Okay, this is the presentation. Here I have the topic, which is Brazilian higher education system simplified. That's the title I gave to it, guys. Right? Basically, Brazil is one of, let's say, the giant of South America. It has a long history since from the coming of the Portuguese to this part of the world, the southern hemisphere, right? And I have a short cut of how the system started. We have a brief history here where the system, when the Brazilian higher education actually started, when the Portuguese crown moved to Brazil. If you read the history of Brazil, you will see that it was governed from Portugal. Uh, that's the first instance, and then there was a time that the Portuguese crown was kind of persecuted, and he had to move to Brazil. So on moving to Brazil, they decided to start establishing systems here. So in 1808, that's the first institution. That's the School of Medicine was established. But the university system, the polytechnics or whatever other systems would start from 1920 That's the first university that was established specifically, was the Universidade do Rio de Janeiro in 1920. From then, we had like evolution and evolution, creation of the systems that I am about to present to you guys here. Okay. So basically, I'm going to talk about the information, that general information and structure. Guys, this is in Portuguese, right? But since you're listening to me, it's going to be easier, right? It's going to be easier. Information here, as I said, I will continue saying, is in Portuguese. Most, not majority actually, everything is in Portuguese here. You have a kind of shift at the moment. We have an integration of English within their system. They are trying to kind of force it so that they have part, kind of done in English, most especially the technical part, right? The research. And also, they want to equip their students so that at the end of the day, they can be able to communicate with the international society, right? So the presentation is going to be in Portuguese. Just listen. If you have questions, you can ask. Okay, I'm going to try to accompany here. All right. I'm going to talk about general information and structure. I will talk about it's the I, they call it the ES, Instituições de Ensino Superior. Okay, the higher educational institutions, that's the main focus. And then we have the types of courses, right? Types of courses, and that's the levels. So when we are talking about the general information and structure, we will talk about the academic calendar. The academic calendar usually they start the universities or the institutions in general, higher educational institutions to be specific. They start in March. Okay, let me confirm if my video audio is okay. Universities or all right, it's okay. In general, it's okay. In March or February. I prefer to say March because majority of the universities or the institutions, higher institutions of learning, they begin their semesters in March. February is Carnival, and Carnival is one of the largest festive, let's say, festivities in the world. Okay, it's one of the largest. So we have the duration. It could be semestral, yeah, or it could be annual. Okay, a majority of the universities run, semesters, right? They take students every semester, but some, like the traditional universities, take annually. But there are other exceptions, like they take continuously. Okay, you can take it, you can like participate in the selective process any time of the year, but you can finish or start your studies in February. Okay, it doesn't mean that it's fluxo continua. As you, if you open some uh, web pages or department pages, you're gonna see fluxo continua there. It doesn't really mean that yeah, you can you can start or finish anytime. Okay, so basically these are very important information that you need. Okay, let's come back to this part. Okay, let's talk about the periods of the day where you can study. You can study in the morning, okay, that is matutino. You can study in the afternoon, vespertino, and at night. Some people that work, they usually study at night, okay? Or you can study in the morning, in the afternoon, okay? You can study in the morning and in the afternoon, or you can study in the afternoon and at night, or you can study uh, matutino, vespertino, notturno. In my case, when I was studying in the morning and in the afternoon. In rare cases, I studied at night. Yeah, uh, these courses that were usually studied at night, humanities, for instance, right? Or social sciences, those courses, they usually have people who work, and when they return, they come to school. Okay, so we've talked about academic calendar and then the periods of studies. Now let's go to the main information that I would like to concentrate more on, which is the first of all, we'll talk about when we are talking about the higher educational institutions, we can do a classification based on administrative, aspect. Okay, when we are talking about administrative aspect, we are talking about the public universities, institutions, públicas, okay, and the private institutions. So the public university institutions, higher education institutions, they could be federal, they could be state or municipals. Okay, so in the case of private institutions, they are usually just they're called EASC. Okay, they are called yes, Instituto de Educação Superior. Okay, they are not linked to the maybe any of the levels of government, federal, state, or the municipal. Okay, here in Nigeria, we say local governments, right? And then when we are talking about the public institutions or higher institutions of learning, they are usually administered by the government and they are free of charge. Here in Brazil, no higher institution of learning charges you any form of payment except if you are participating in the selective process. Sometimes there is a token that you pay for the registration, participation, because they are gonna kind of, I don't know, uh, the people that actually evaluate you are government workers, they are lecturers, okay? But somehow they try to generate a kind of revenue for the government because you pay directly to the account of the government, okay? I've participated in many, so I'm talking out of experience. I'm talking from experience, actually, sorry. And the private institutions, high institutions of learning, they are kind of administered by the private entities, okay? Administradas por entidades privadas. Yeah, the rich people, right? And they charge, cobram mensalidades. They charge you per month. It's different from Nigeria where you pay kind of twice a year or once a year. Okay. Here in Brazil, you usually pay monthly, and the dues are kind of they're high, okay, considerably. They're high, depending on your financial capacity. But in my own case, I would say they are high, okay? Right. So we've talked about the classification, administrative classification. And let's talk about the type of academic organization. Here, we are going to classify them, okay? Pay attention. We're going to classify them. And I will answer implicitly some of your questions. Some of you have asked me to talk a little bit about technical schools here in Brazil. Okay, so I'm going to try to comment on them based on the little research I've made. Okay, so when we are talking about the academic classification or categorization, we will put the universities at the top. Okay, here we have universities in general. So we are talking about private universities, we are talking about public universities. The public universities, we have the federal, we have the state, we have the municipal, whatever. But the most common are the state and what and the federal universities. Okay, and they focus on research, they focus on teaching, research, and extension, right? So that is basically what they do. And when we are talking about the second category, which is the centros universitarios, one thing I'm going to say is these are structures that are similar uh, to the universities. Okay, they are universities themselves, but somehow they are kind of reduced. It's not that amplified structure. It's not that very rigorous, very elaborated structure, of the university. You will see that okay, there is a kind of simplicity in it, and they have a limit of 8 courses. The limit of 8, that's the minimum to establish this kind of institutions. Okay, and some describe them as if they are between faculties and the universities. They are kind of intermediary. But if you look at their characteristics, they are universities themselves. Okay, just that researchers there, like the teachers, the lecturers, they are not engaged in kind of core research. Okay, they are not into that. So most of the people who graduate from these universities, somehow they are not kind of acquainted to core research. Okay, when you talk to them, you will feel that absence. Okay, but when we're talking about the universities, the federal state, we are talking about course research, extension, whatever. And the next category is the institutos federais, that is the technical schools that some of you have asked. I've seen like 3 4 comments, people asking me to talk a little bit about them. Okay, they focus on technological formation. That is why they are called polytechnics. Okay, literally, these are polytechnics. So we have the federal, we have the state, okay, and we have the local polytechnics. Okay, so basically, we have an applied skill here, and I will talk a little bit about the mode of entry, even though I've already talked about the universities. But if you want to study at the university here in Brazil, you can study through international mobility programs that I've described, and maybe I've talked a little bit about in some videos on my channel. You could come through the PEC-PG, okay, to study at the postgraduate level. You can come through the GCUB at the postgraduate level. You can come through normal entry process at the postgraduate level. You can come through some specific programs. We also have some specific programs, for instance, for the refugees, for specific countries in the world, maybe where war exists. Okay, we have that possibility also, and some diplomatic ties. There are some intra university relationships. Like they have autonomy. One of the characteristics of the universities and the federal institutes, that's the polytechnics, they call them autarkia, which they have autonomy. They can decide to relate. Let's say there is an institution X, it can relate with an institution Y, okay, create a convention. It has, let's say, a budget. It results, because we are talking about money here. When we're talking about relationship, it's money involved, okay, because you can kind of take students from a certain institution to another. Okay, you can open vacancies, and then you let the students from X universities move to Y university. You have to provide them structure. You have to provide them scholarships, maybe so that they can take care of themselves. So basically, they have this autonomy to do that. Okay. Yeah. So at the postgraduate level, that was what the description I gave, the mode of entry. At the graduate level, you can come through programs like PECG, which is the most popular at the graduate level in these universities. Okay, that's the state and the federal universities, right? Or you can sit for the national examinations here in Brazil. They call it the ENEM. There is a system called the CZU. In Nigeria, it's something like the UTME. I don't know if the name has changed. Okay, the it used to be called JAM in my era, Joint Admission and Matriculation Board. Okay, so they have a unified system of the that's the high school. Okay, high school unified system, where that is an exam called ENEN. Okay, so this exam, all the students in that year, or maybe past years that didn't get the pass mark, they can sit for the examination, and there is a cutoff point for for various courses. So that is one of the mode of entries. In case you are here in Brazil as a foreigner, you can also participate. Okay. So talking about the centros universitários, okay, that's the same. They undergo the same process. You go for you sit for an examination, and then the their cutoff points are usually lower, since they are kind of they are not very strong institutions. Not I'm not trying to like reduce them, but somehow their cutoff points are kind of lower, but they have specific programs. Okay, their programs are usually marketable programs. For instance, you finish and then you go into the field. Okay, if you are kind of applied, you want to work with a specific sector, not just research. Because if you go to the federal universities, somehow they kind of prepare you to go into research. But when you go into these universities, that's the centros universitarios, you kind of study applied courses, right? And then the most important here, institutos federais. Usually, let me see who is accompanying me, please, and see if it's okay. All right. Okay. So the institutos federais, the same process you go through. You have to sit for the Exame Nacional do Ensino Médio, that is the ENEM. You get the points. There is a cutoff point. Okay, you have different subjects. I can't remember the subjects, but they have Portuguese. Okay, there is uh, I think it's critical thinking, right? Then specific uh, they have specific courses like physics. You have chemistry. You have math, biology, right? And then you have a maximum of 1,000. Okay, well, maximum of 1,000. But that is done usually after they take the average, because you have like quota for all the subjects that you've written, and then later there is a summation or an average. Okay, so it's very important that you score a very high point in Portuguese. In the Portuguese, there is a section called redação where you write an essay. Okay, so if you are coming as an English speaker, you have to like study Portuguese. It's not just the shallow Portuguese, so it makes it very difficult for you to come like the post as easy as you can do at the postgraduate level. That's the fact. Okay, so for those of you maybe who dream to study at the undergraduate level, study like your degree programs, education, right? Somehow it's a little bit reduced. It's better to come through the international mobility programs or the special programs like they call it sandwich, right? Sandwich program, where you have like you study in a certain institution for 2 years. Usually they are fruits of they are kind of they are as a result of partnership between the universities. Okay, initiatives by two universities, They kind of do a mobility program. So that is basically it. Okay. So unfortunately, at the moment, I did a rigorous research because I've been seeing that for a long time. You guys asking me, how can I come to study at the federal uh, in the federal institutes. I've met a couple of students, international students, who came recently, but they told me they came through an internal mobility program. So somehow they are coming from their universities. Sorry, they are coming from their institutions of learning in their countries. I don't know, maybe state universities, federal universities, or even the polytechnics. They are coming from there, and then some of them are participating in international mobility programs. I made a lot of Portuguese speaking students from Angola, from Mozambique, So basically, they told me that. And I tried to search, I didn't find any information. I've heard of something, a speculation, of Brazil kind of popularizing the, the federal polytechnics or the polytechnics in Nigeria. But I don't know if the project went further. I tried to search, I didn't find much information. So, guys, this is it. And then we have the faculties. Faculties usually they are very specific. For instance, in the universities, you have faculties, medicine, pharmacy. We're talking about just a specific unit, okay? Here in Brazil, they are permitted to function as independent entities, okay? So you can find, yeah, a specific faculty functioning, right? So, yes, that is the type of organization. And lastly, we can talk about the levels, okay? That's the course levels. You can study at the undergraduate level, and you can study at the postgraduate level. Even though postgraduate in English, it's somehow confused. It's somehow confusing. Okay, but here in Brazil, that's how they call it, right? That's what they call it. It makes sense if you say at the graduate level, right? If you finish, that's undergraduate, you study your degree, that's undergraduate. And then graduate level, you're talking about the master's, right? You're talking about other courses. And maybe the postgraduate level, you're talking about the PhD, right? So it makes sense that way. But, I'm used to, doing it this way because some universities, even outside Brazil's English speaking, they use the postgraduate stuff. Okay, it's a little bit confusing. But here in Brazil is the same. It's basically what I'm trying to explain. Okay, and also they issue out diploma. It's very funny because when I arrived, they say, okay, if I finish, what title would I receive? They said diploma. So in Nigeria, diploma is for those who graduate at the polytechnics, right? So here, you graduate at the university, you receive a diploma. You graduate at the polytechnic, you receive a diploma. Same thing, okay? The head of the university is called the rector, not the vice chancellor. All right. In Nigeria, the rector is the leader of the academic leader of the polytechnic, and the vice chancellor is the academic leader of the university. So, but it's okay, right? Now, when we're talking about the level at the undergraduate level, we are talking about this is bacharelado, right? That is degree, usually 4 to 6 years, depending on the course that you're studying. I studied for 5 years engineering, which is the same period, of studies in Nigeria. We have licenciatura. Licenciatura is also bachelor's degree, guys. Bachelor's degree, right? But what's the difference? What is the difference between bacharelado and licenciatura? Licenciatura is basically education. When you study in English-speaking countries where you have courses of English education, math education, physics education. You are talking about licenciatura. Here, you are kind of uh, your formation is concentrated on like teaching. All right, you have method, teaching method there, while you when you are studying bachelorado, you have kind of you are prepared to go into the field of just to work in that specific field, not to serve as a transmitter of information or a lecturer, a teacher. You are not prepared for that, okay? But licenciatura is basically it. And then the technological, we have the polytechnics, state, federal, and then we have other institutions. We are talking about short courses, 2 to 3 years, okay, and then they are practical, they are more applied, right? So basically, that is it, okay. So at the graduate level. What about at the postgraduate level or at the graduate level? We have courses that are lato sensu, specialization, and then we have stricto sensu, pesquisa avançada. That is, these are kind of, when you study lato sensu, they are preparing you specifically to work in that, let's say, sector, right? You're not prepared to go into deep research. Stricto sensu prepares you for deep research, right? For instance, in the lato sensu, you have a minimum of 360 hours, which is very low. Okay, very low. It's a specialization. You have the MBA, and then you have the medical residency, residencia médica, which can take like 5 years. Here in Brazil, you have about 5 years. Okay, it's not very short. Okay, but it prepares you to work in a hospital. It prepares you to kind of deal with specific problem, right? And then it results in a certificate. You obtain a certificate when you go through the specialization. That is the lato sensu. And the stricto sensu is basically what majority of the students do when they come, the international mobility programs. They usually put you through this, okay? So you have the masters, you have uh, 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 an average of 2 years to conclude. You can extend that 3, 4, depending on your situation. In case you find yourself in a financial difficulty of language learning, difficulty in health, or something that impedes you to conclude that within 2 years, you can extend that. They have some forms that you fill, you give them reasons why you are extending, and then you have like doctorate. At the doctoral level, you have 4 years to conclude, but you can conclude. I talked about 2 years. That's the average, but you can also conclude in, let's say, 1.5 years. Okay, 1.5 year you can finish, and doctoral you can finish in 3 years. There is a calculation there. You cannot be lower than that, so that it doesn't look too fast. Like, okay, was it really a good research? Well, so you don't need to be too fast. Also, you don't need to be too slow. Like, you can take like 6 years to finish. It's understandable in case you study a very complex topic, right? You can take 7, but not more than that. Okay, that's too much. Unless if you work, okay, you put the studies on reserve and then you go, you work, you work, you work. You can extend that for a long time. It's understandable. But if you are kind of building your career, you really depend on that certificate when you finish. It's better to like conclude everything and then you focus on your work. Here we have presentation of dissertation when you finish your 2 year program, that is the master's, and then you have you're gonna be kind of, your focus would be professional, right? It's gonna be professional, and usually you are prepared for a deep research too. At the same time, you are a good professional, right? And then last Lastly, we have the at the doctoral level, you have a presentation of a document that is written by you, something that is here we say inedita. Inedita in English is basically something that is new, okay? Something that was developed by you. It's a new technique, okay? It's a new information, and it was developed by you. So you have that obligation, and when you finish, you receive a doctoral certificate, okay? Doctoral degree certificate. So basically, guys, I'm gonna collapse everything. So basically, that was the explanation. That was what I wanted to present to you guys. Okay. Now I'm gonna check if someone has asked a question. All right. I have Tolu. Tolu is there watching me. Good evening, Tolu. Samuel is also here watching me. He says interesting. Well, I don't know if you have questions, guys. As I have said, for you to come to the polytechnics here, you need to go through for the meantime, actually, because I try to check to see if there is a speculation. I don't know if other YouTubers are talking about, some alternatives, but at the moment, there is nothing official. I have checked the official websites, the information. I want to bring something, not like a speculation to you guys. So I checked, there isn't any information, right? The only alternative is going through the Eneng Exame Nacional do Ensino Médio, which is organized by the CISU, right? I don't know if I've provided a link. Okay, I think there is a link in the description of the live, right? What is the name of the app you are using for the presentation? Okay, yes, I'm using Notebook LM, okay? I'm using Notebook LM. I'm gonna put it here. I am using, oh, it's correcting. When I type in English, it corrects to Portuguese. So sometimes I spell things wrongly, not because of my wish, not because I wish to spell them wrongly, but because of my. I am using Notebook LM. All right. So guys, is a doctoral degree based on monothesis or based on, no? It's monothesis. Okay, guys. Hi, Riaz. I've not heard of polythesis. It's always monothesis. Okay, I don't know if it's gonna change. I don't know if it's gonna change. Any questions, guys? I don't know if you have doubts. Yeah, as I was saying, the presentations are usually monothesis, but there are some stages where you guys can kind of have a common presentation. More especially if you are working with, let's say, um, let's say a lab, and the topic has been there for a long time. It's been developed for like 3 decades. The same topic has evolved. Somehow you kind of maybe have two people writing about the same topic. You can end up like publishing, similar information. You can share information too. Yeah, it happened to me when I was doing my master's. Even though the student that was at the undergraduate level, he was studying something different, but we were using kind of similar techniques. So we ended up like sharing some information, but the final document is always a separate. We have separate information. Okay, which part of the country do you think has the minimal living expenses? Well, the northern part of the country has the minimal living expenses, guys. The north and northeastern part of it. Okay, but how can I say? But as a how can I put it? But as a negative point, it has kind of low standard of living. Okay, you have the lowest standard of living in the northeast. The structures are not a kind of when you compare them to the structures of the southern part of the country, you have lesser structures here in the northeastern part of the country. Yeah, so basically that is it. Let's go. Samuel says, I applied for GCUB but did not make it. I'm looking to go for direct application now. Yes, that is what I advise students to do. Don't think it's over. Okay, you didn't get the GCUB, you can go for other alternatives. You can go for the PEC-G. The PEC-PG has already, closed. I think they've released their results also, but you can go for other alternatives. And I think when you go for direct application, you have higher chances. Okay, you have higher chances because you have lots of universities available. It's not just a recipe, a list of universities there. You have many alternatives, but you have to pay attention. If you There are some criteria, right, that you need to consider if you need to go to the university to sit for an examination. Yeah, in that case, you can forfeit that. If you need to write an examination, like it has to be at the university, you can forfeit that. But if it's like, okay, interview, if they say, okay, come to the university, you can say no. I live outside Brazil, so you can help me out. They can decide to make your interview online. Okay, I've accompanied cases where students went through online interviews. Yeah, if they also request for, yeah, I think basically the most difficult part is presentation. If they have presentation, that is easy. You can convince them to allow you present online. Interview, you can convince them to allow you to go through an online interview. In the case of test or examination, it becomes a little bit difficult for them because some of them don't have that structure, installed to monitor you. Let's say the technological structure that would kind of monitor you during the examination. Some universities already have installed. You sit for the examination. They ask you to install some programs. You need to have a webcam so that they can be able to monitor your movement to see if there are no irregularities, during the test. Okay. So basically, I think apart from these difficulties, payment, you can look for someone from Brazil to do the payment in case there is a token tied to it. Recently, there has been kind of popularity in the payment of the call for applications from from 70, 80, 100 is very common, right? 9500 reais for registration is very common at the moment. But apart from these difficulties, you check, all right, you go ahead to apply. So let's read the next comment. Hai says, Raiz. That's how you read it in English. In Portuguese, raiz. When R comes at the beginning of a word, they say raiz. Maybe it's raiz. Maybe it's um, raiz. I don't know, but you can correct me. From PhD admission, do I need to contact supervisors beforehand? That is a good question. In some cases, I think in all the cases, it's good to contact them. Okay, it's good to contact them before you apply. They can guide you. No, you show them enthusiasm. They know that you're really interested in studying. Okay, you show them that okay, I want to study. This is it. This is what I have. You present them with maybe a documentation, something you've thought of. You study the lines first. You check. Okay, what does the lecturer? What's his line of studies or line of research? You develop something. A kind of pre-project in that line, and then you tell him, okay, I have this. He's going to read it and then get back to you and then usually give you the guidelines, the dates, how to go about it. He gives you all the clues. That is how you go about it, right? Is it possible to pursue the doctoral without fun? Yeah, it's okay. You can pursue it without fun, but it's a little bit difficult for someone who resides in a different country, unless if you have the money. Yeah, if you have it, you can, of course, pursue it without. If I had the money, I wouldn't even go for the scholarship. Okay, I remember I studied my undergraduate without a Brazilian scholarship. I received a scholarship from Nigeria, so I didn't depend on that. In your case, if you have a funding, you are wealthy, or you're funded from your country, you forfeit it. Okay, another person gets the scholarship beyond the four. Okay, I didn't read the last line. I didn't complete the sentence. Beyond the 4 years duration, no. After 4 years, you have to stop earning the scholarship. All right, there is no extension. There is no extension. Can one apply for masters with third class in Brazil? Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. Yes, it's possible. You can apply. Don't feel don't feel too low. If but make sure you try to qualify yourself, right? Make sure you get more qualification, like do other programs. They could be online. Look for those online courses. You do, a lot of them, like three, four. They give you they strengthen you so that okay, she has a third class. She also has some complementaries. Okay, so that is how you go about it. But you can apply, no problem. Uh, Ola, Olakan says UFMS, Universidade Federal de Minas, UFMS. Okay. Universidade Federal, UFMS. What is that university? Mato Grosso do Sul. Okay, I now remember. Universidade Federal do Mato Grosso do Sul is requesting for CPF from foreigners in their application. Send them an email. Send them an email. Tell them that you are a foreigner, you don't have a CPF. They're going to categorize you. They're going to make something special, especially if you have like many people sending the same email, making the same complaint. They're going to attend to that. So if you have any doubts, don't hesitate to send them emails always. That's why it's good to have a supervisor so that the supervisor can be there kind of articulating things for you. Okay. Let's see. Joseph, Joseph says, I applied for PECG. I don't make it. Yeah, if you didn't make it, you can apply for another. Okay. At the undergraduate level, it's a little bit difficult. You don't have much alternatives. Okay. So you have to be steadfast. You have to like study. You try to, I don't know, at the pec at the undergraduate level. Honestly, I don't know how to kind of help you so that you have an upper hand. But if you have a very good secondary certificate, I don't know if you are from Nigeria. If you are from Nigeria, you have a very good score in WAEC, NACO, or GCE. If you apply, yeah, with a good result, I think you're gonna be taken. Okay. Or other alternative, you can study Portuguese in your country where you are. You sit for for self-price examination. If you pass self-price, there is no way you can you can you not be selected. You have the self-price. No one can stop you from coming to Brazil. Okay. Okay, Tolu says, I didn't make it for the GCUB, waiting for the PEC PG. Yeah, let's hope you make it on the PEC PG list. Let's hope you make it on the PEC PG list. But in case you don't make it, you can try, as I said, you can try to look for other alternatives. The Some of the call for applications are still on at the moment, but they are closing. In a matter of 2 weeks, they are all closed down. You have preparation for the next academic session, and you have to wait in case you don't make it on this, in this final stage, right? The year is coming to an end. Everything is going to stop, and the beginning of the year usually it's a little bit slow because Brazil gets ready for the carnival. Carnival is, as I said, one of the is the biggest actually festival in the world. If you are surprised, okay, giving you this information. It's a very big open air festival, and people kind of spend the whole year getting ready, right? So they kind of respect that. Even those that don't celebrate the carnival, they respect the festival because it's really big, guys. It's really big. So things are very slow. Uh, s- uh, you have to kind of wait until March. March they start opening other calls for application for those who will come in June, July, because you have the second semester. Okay, you have others intakes. They take in students in the middle of the semester, so somehow you can apply. Ola asks that any app to learn Portuguese language, please. I actually don't know. I use Duolingo to learn French, guys. Maybe maybe it's the app that most of us know, right? You can use the Duolingo. It's a good tool to learn Portuguese. Also, you can look for free materials. There should be materials that are available online, PDFs. You can download them. You can also accompany some YouTube channels. There are very good YouTube channels that teach you Portuguese. Yeah, very good YouTube channels. They teach you Portuguese, and they are free. You get the basic, you develop yourself. I think, to me, it's the best way of learning if you are self-didact, right? Autodidact, autodidact. That's how you say it in Brazil. You sit down, you plan your studies. You know when you're stressed up. You know when you are okay to study, to assimilate. Whether you are eating and then reading, we all have kind of patterns. That's what I understand. Some don't really concentrate when they study like the traditional way, and in that case, you can structure yourself, learn, the way you want to learn. Yeah, it's even better, because you learn in a natural way. So you can maybe get the materials online. We have another question. Queen says, what are the other courses I have to do online as some that have third class? Yeah, the courses should be related to your skill, or to the course you studied first. Let's say you studied administration. You have you have a degree in administration. You can study some some programs related to administration. They are kind of they are kind of specific courses, right? Here in Brazil we call them EAD, ensino a distância. Okay, distance learning. You can register yourself in the free uh, courses in top universities. Sometimes they provide free courses, like the Harvard. They provide free courses. You have many universities here in Brazil. They provide free courses, even though it might be difficult for you, since Brazil speaks Portuguese. The materials are going to be in Portuguese, so maybe you can avoid Brazil. You can look for English countries, Oxford, Cambridge, something online. You study, you get the certificate, you keep. You get the certificate, you keep. So those are the things that will later give you an upper hand when you're applying. They're gonna look at those certificates and say, okay, yeah, yeah, this person, you know, maybe that the person is a little bit, serious about it, right? So I don't know, guys. If you have more questions, I will soon log out so that I can go to and yeah, I can go and work. Today I work from 4 to 6. I still have 2 hours to get ready, and then take my yeah, move to my school where I teach. Okay, there are no more questions coming in. So, guys, I want to thank you for this interaction. I will try to I will try to come on live next week, on Saturday or Sunday. Okay, guys, so that I make it a habit. We can interact. If you have doubts, you can get them, so that we can discuss. Well, guys, that is it.